Well, hello. This is Melanie Foote-Davis, the self-love cultivator and founder of the Love and Freedom Academy. And welcome to She Chose Joy podcast. I'm really excited to be here today. Got lots of good stuff for you. And I'm really excited about the guest that we're going to bring on because she is my very dear sister friend. And well, you all will understand why I'm so excited once I bring her on and you get to see who she is. I started this podcast partially because there was a period of time in my life when I wasn't necessarily always choosing joy. There were times when I was self-sabotaging my own efforts and standing in my own way, and I actually was suffering, but it was a choice. And so that's something that we often forget. We forget that our life is something that we get to embrace and we get to shift based on the perspectives that we have about what's really happening in front of us. And so I'm on a mission to choose joy every day. And I get it that some days it won't necessarily feel so attainable depending on what I'm experiencing, because of course I believe in also honoring my emotions and giving them room to breathe. But I also am choosing not to suffer by my own doing. And so with that said, I want to just bring on my guest because she's someone that I can talk to quite often about, not just about the joyful things and the things that are going well in our lives, but about manifesting and being co-creators and how really we can just simply shift things in our minds and turn our lives around because we play a huge role in what we're experiencing. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to my guest. Tiffany Stevens is a licensed clinical professional counselor and the founding therapist and clinical director of Graceful Growth Counseling Services, a boutique group counseling practice in the South Loop of Chicago, Illinois, aimed towards serving women. Tiffany is also the author of Pretty in Pink, Stories of Survival, Courage, and Faith, a book that provides hope, information, and encouragement for those recently diagnosed with breast cancer. She enjoys speaking, facilitating workshops, hosting retreats for women, coaching individuals on how to manifest their dreams, and spending quality time with her amazing daughter, Madison. Tiffany, welcome to She Chose Joy.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm super excited that you're here. Like when this idea was birthed, I started drafting a list of people that I wanted to be able to share with the world, people who have been a huge value in my life. And your name was easily placed on that list. Like I didn't have to think hard about it at all because I just love you dearly. So your clients at Graceful Growth are really fortunate to have you. And I am selfishly grateful that I get to have you in my personal life as a sister friend. Like you guys don't realize this, but our community is really important to us. And Tiffany is one of those people that I can reach out to hold space for me, even if I don't necessarily want feedback, but just want somebody to just listen. And she can help me see things in a way that I'm not able to see for myself at the time because I'm too close to my own experience. So anyway, I'm just going to stop talking and just get right into it.
Well, thank you so much. I feel so special and loved right now.
Because you are special and loved right now. You really are. So one of the things that I appreciate about you is the fact that we can talk about things like co-creation and about manifesting and all of those different things. And I know right now there's a lot of things going on in the world and people are living, there's a lot of fear. Like we're not just fighting a virus called coronavirus. We're also fighting a virus called fear. And people are out there full of anxiety. They're grieving, like the loss of job, the loss of their sense of safety and security, the loss of loved ones. And so how have you been able to, especially as someone who's a space holder and you take in a lot of energy, how are there any practices or beliefs that you use to keep you grounded and help you maintain faith in these uncertain times?
Yeah, a lot like you were saying, we choose. So every day we get to choose if we are going to buy into fear, if we are going to find things that kind of like make us happy or contribute to our happiness. And that's what I've been doing. And so most of it is me thinking about what I can control and what I can't control, right? And so whatever it is that I can't control, I create a plan for it. And that which I can't, I pray, and surrender. I meditate, and in that, I also work really, really hard on carefully choosing my thoughts and carefully choosing my words and making sure that I'm using my affirmations, because I know that those things are going to directly impact the actions.
One of the things that you said, you mentioned prayer, but you also mentioned surrender.
Yes.
And surrender is something that I'm going to admit, it's not always easy to do, because, I want to believe that I am in control of those things. And so learning to just trust the process and surrender to it all is a challenge. So when we think about like that space of surrender where we just release it to God, because I know a lot of people who pray, but the pray is, and I know I'm probably going to get some backlash for saying this, but this is how I honestly feel. A lot of times when I hear prayers, they sound so heavy, not just because they're feeling heavy, but it's almost like a begging and a pleading that, like, please fix this and please that. And from where I sit, that kind of stands in the way of that whole surrendering process and the ability to manifest what you want. Because here's what I'm trying to say. It's almost a prayer of doubt.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't.
And we go into the prayer fearful, right? And I think one of the things, and I credit my clients for this, teaching me how important it is to release, because as I work with my clients, one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of times, if it's not fear, it's them wanting to control something so badly that they don't have control over. And so one of the affirmations that I use is I trust God, because I know that it may not be what I think I want or what I saw for myself initially, but with anything, you can find good in it. Like you may have to look a little harder, but there is good in it, right? And when we say we co-create, are we really co-creating and allowing universe, spirit, God, whatever you call it, to be a partner? Or are we just trying to do everything? We want to do our part. We want to do God's part. We just want to have complete control over everything. And so the surrendering, it is not easy, but it becomes easier with practice.
Yeah, so not necessarily something we master, but something we practice, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and being able to that I trust God is such a simple affirmation. It in a simple prayer.
Yep. Because
And
sometimes I know for me, I felt so heavy at times, and I'm like, you know what? I just really want the best for everybody involved, right? And I don't always know what that looks like. I don't always know what's needed, but I trust God. Even when things come up that, they don't look so great, I think this is the same God that blessed me with my daughter, that blessed me with my business, that did so many wonderful things, right? It's the same God. And so I always just trust God. And sometimes I think I've made such a habit of it now, it just comes up sometimes without me even thinking about it. It's just one of those things, like we all have our internal dialogue, but for me, that comes up. And so I said, okay, I've made a practice of it. And now is that affirmation, that prayer is there when I need it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of mine is guide me, God guide me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And another one that I do, sometimes my meditation, even while I'm moving, is I release. I release. And I just keep saying that in my mind to remind myself to release whatever it is that I'm holding on to that's standing, in the way. So I mentioned earlier that you're one of the people that I can talk to about manifesting. But I know there's a lot of posts out there. There's a lot of things about manifesting your dreams and all of these different things. But there are also people who really haven't really made a connection to what it really means to manifest. Like we say it, but what does it really mean?
Yeah.
Is that something you can help with?
Absolutely. For me, when I think about manifesting, it's almost like prayer, meditation, surrendering. It's a spiritual practice, right? And so I look at it as the materialization of an idea. So being able to bring into the visible that which I see in my mind. And so it's, I think that when you really think about it, we are always manifesting, right? But you get to determine what you manifest by your thinking, by, what you're saying. It's when you are aware that you manifest every day through your thoughts, you can choose those thoughts a little differently. And so when you say like choose joy, that's kind of what I think of, right? And it also puts you in a position of power when you really, really get to choose what you have in your life, when you actually get to co-create with the greatest creator there is. It's pretty powerful. So when I think about manifesting, that's what comes up for me and how I can best define it.
When you were talking about it, and you said that we're all manifesting by our thoughts, it made me think of, there's a saying, I used to attend a Unity church, and one of the things was our thoughts of prayers, and we're always praying. Our thoughts of prayers. Take charge of what you're saying,
And people don't realize that is so true. And that's one of the things I always heard growing up, is like every thought is a prayer. And when you realize that, you are very, very careful about the things that you think about. Even if you really took a good look at your life now and thought about some of the things that you think about, some of the things that you fear, what's showing up. And it's probably a picture of really what's going on in your mind. Yep.
Yeah. It's so true too. It's kind of like that whole thing about, when we make a decision, because we don't always give ourselves credit for how much power we actually do have, as we thinking about that whole co-creative process. If we're not a co-creator, we aren't playing a role in it, then that means we're the victim of whatever happens.
Yep.
And so all these things that we said we wanted to have control over, we've given it up when we, choose to just let life happen, to us instead of for us. And so I'm just thinking about simple things, like, for example, when this whole thing, she chose joy, came to mind, right? When it was, when I felt that in my spirit, like the words were dropped in, it first came, she found joy. And then, and I meditated on it and sat with it. And then it evolved into she chose joy, because it wasn't just something that she found, like she being me and other women out there, but it was also like that space of being able to feel empowered to choose for yourself and to take charge of that space. And with that, I actually, when this was birthed and I started really embracing the idea and sitting with it and grounding myself in it more, I actually started attracting more people who had similar beliefs.
Yeah. And I like the she chose to, right? When you think about found, like this is something, and it could be found for some people, but this joy is something that we all have, right?
Yeah.
We were born with it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's there. We have to choose to acknowledge that it's there. We
Mm-hmm.
have to choose to want it and do the things and think the thoughts that's going to continuously allow us to live in that space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I love, love, love the name.
Thank you. Thank you. You
You're
guys can't
welcome.
see me, but I'm like they need a hand over the heart emoji for me so I can just go, oh, fight. So that when my heart smiles and oozes, I do that. I'm saying do that like they can see me. Okay, I have my hand placed over my heart. My shoulders are hunched, and I have that like, oh, that yummy thing when you get that yummy, delicious feeling. So again, like, even with that, like as I'm sitting here even thinking about what we're saying, we're still even speaking to the manifestation of it. When I talked about attracting people, that's a way of manifesting and co-creating. Like I was a part of it by putting that vibration out there. I drew into me and invited in people who were going to connect with the vibe that I was on.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what it is. When you start to put out a different vibe and different energy, you attract that very thing to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you said earlier, I might get some feedback from this, but a lot of times people say like opposites attract. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that like attracts like.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you start to show up as joy, you'll be able to find joy in most anything and most people and have more joy in your experience. But it all starts with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the funny thing about the opposites attract, right, is that a lot of times my belief is when you do draw to you the opposite, you're drawing a part of you that needs to be healed or expressed or something. Like there's a teachable moment for you. Like if we're attracting, if like going back to our thoughts of prayers, right? And every thought is a prayer. If you're thinking dramatic thoughts, then we invite in more dramatic opportunities and people that bring drama, right? And that's an opportunity to choose again because it's reflecting what's on our minds. It's reflecting what we've been thinking about and what we've been giving energy to. And so here, insert drama right here. And that's an opportunity to see, is a reflection of a part of something that's going on with you. So it's not really the opposite. It is that light energy that you were just speaking of.
Yep. And it's a practice, and it's something that, you know, if it doesn't happen right away, realizing, okay, well, there's a lesson. And so once I get that lesson, then, you know, I can try it again, but not giving up because you didn't manifest something through your thoughts or actions in the first, I don't know, 15 minutes, which I believe is possible, but it's a practice. And sometimes it just takes you longer to get there.
Ooh, you know what? Have you ever had like manifested something so quickly that it blew your mind?
Yep. You know what? At one point I was practicing manifesting, and I felt like I was so good at it. I was like, oh wait, it almost became scary for me because I'm like, okay, I have to make sure that I'm really intentional about what I want. But that came from me when I was looking to do my business, right? I was working part-time and yet another non-profit agency was making maybe a little over 40. It was rough because I had to like pick and choose what I was going to pay. It was hard. But I knew that if I started my practice, I would have to have, well, my goal was to have 25 clients a week in order to double my income, feel confident enough to just do my own thing full time. And then I came up with my affirmations and I would say them, and then I talk to my mother a lot. And so I would share them with her. And maybe it got to a point where before we were off the phone, another client was calling. You know, it's just like I would say one thing and I say, well, I'm expecting 2 more clients by X, Y, and Z time. And I got them every single time. And so I was like, oh, okay, maybe I asked for 3 clients where I, you know, and it became like a game for me because I just wanted to be able to see like when is it going to happen? Because I had to tell myself because if I'm saying I'm co-creating and this is what I believe and I'm claiming, when is it happening? How many? But also making sure that I was flexible and I gave myself grace if things didn't move, right away. But eventually it started to move. And so I think for me, being able to do that was like, and I'm glad that I was talking to my mother about it, because I felt like this is proof. Like I have a witness, because many people wouldn't believe how fast and how well I was manifesting.
It is beautiful when you get to share it with somebody else. And you're right. Like if you told somebody about it who wasn't there afterwards, then they're like, yeah, okay, right, sure, right. So like there's been plenty of times that it happened for me like that too, where it happened fast. And one example is one day I was telling my husband, I was like, you know what I would really like is to have skybox, like be in the skybox and see an NBA game from there. And then I was like, oh, you know what else? I've never seen Kobe play live, and it's only a matter of time before he's going to retire. I would love to see Kobe play at least once, right? Not just me talking, because that's what I really felt. So it must have been like a day, maybe two, but I know it was in that same week. My husband said, what you doing on so-and-so day? And I was like, why? He's like, oh, because I got tickets to the Lakers Bulls game. And he's like, what you do you have? And he like, it was funny because he's like, so what number's gonna come out in the lottery? And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. It's like, it doesn't work like that. So I had manifested tickets to see Kobe. So then we go to the game, and for anybody who's ever gone to United Center, like the parking can be a trip, and you're trying to decide like which lot nearby you're gonna park on is gonna make more sense and all these things. But he didn't go looking for a lot like we usually do. He pulled up onto the United Center parking lot. And I was like, oh, we're going to park over here? And he's like, yeah, So I'm like, okay. And then I was asking questions because, I'm naturally inquisitive. So I always have questions. And so I'm asking questions, and he's like, will you just roll with me? So here's the piece he didn't tell me, was that when I manifested the tickets to see Kobe, I manifested skybox tickets that included parking, food, drinks, everything, all within a few days from a source. And then that's that whole thing, like being detached to where it comes from and who it comes through, because the tickets were gifted to him by somebody he had just met.
Yeah. But that goes back to letting go. Right? Like you put it out there, you kind of, this is what I want, but don't feel like you have to control every single little thing, because that's not really your role, right? You put it out there, and the how is not up to you. The when is not up to you always.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember you telling me a story about manifesting a long time ago, when I think it was maybe your first home that you had purchased.
I did.
I remember that story.
I manifested my home using creative visualization. I used to, the home I wanted, I was purchasing my first home, and the home I wanted wasn't necessarily, it didn't align with my current financial reality. Being
careful with those words.
Yes. Being careful with those words. I'm not going to say I can't afford and all those things, so those things stand in the way, right?
Yeah.
So I used to, I was in the beauty industry, so the salon was closed on Mondays, and typically we had trainings or meetings, or it was an off day. And so on Mondays, I would go to the model of the home that I wanted, and I would sit in. What I loved about it was there was a loft over my bed, over the master bedroom. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and say my bedroom. I would take my journal, and I would go to the loft in the model home, and I would journal, and I would envision myself living there, and I would journal about what it was like. And then towards the end of the year, now mind you, I had a contract on another home in that same neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady that worked in the model home, she knew that I didn't want anything when I'm like, I'm just going to my loft, right? And so I did. And it was near the end of the year, and I got a phone call from the builder, and they had 5 homes that didn't go through. And so what I wanted was the master bedroom with the loft. I wanted an in unit because I didn't want a townhome that was between 2 houses, and I wanted brick.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they called and they asked me to come and see the spaces, the homes that they did have, in whichever one I chose. If I was willing to move in earlier than planned, because my home, they hadn't even broken ground on my home that I had a contract on yet. Oh, I'm not even gonna call that one my home. The one that I thought was gonna be mine, right? Initially. Let me just rephrase that again. The one I was initially accepting. So I went to see it, and one of them was, it had the loft, and it was an in unit. It didn't have the brick, but it was 2 of the things, right? The 2 are the most important for me, actually. And so I was able to get it at the same rate that I was already paying. Like, it wasn't going to cost me anymore. They were gifting me the extras.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it.
But here's an important thing about that story, right? Here's a part of the story that I tell in certain settings, and I'm going to share this now because it's important, is I manifested that home. I manifested the one that I wanted, and it felt good. And I was really excited about it. But I also later lost that same home because I didn't feel worthy of having it.
Yeah.
Not because I could no longer afford it, but because I didn't feel worthy of having it. So subconsciously, I sabotaged all the things that would make more of that available. Instead of building that momentum and continuing that whole manifesting all that is good, my thoughts shifted into whether I was worthy of having it, and my behaviors, like, they said, okay, we're on board. And so I manifested what I didn't want. And so I feel like that's important to mention.
Yeah. And that's why I say we manifest good, bad, and indifferent. We really do. But once we're conscious, once we're aware of our thoughts and how powerful we are, we can choose to manifest and claim the things that we want.
Yeah. And so, like you said,
and
like
keep the things that we want to manifest.
Every prayer is a thought, right? And so being worthy of having it and shifting the beliefs around that and grounding yourself in what really matters helps us keep the things and build momentum from there to get more of all that is good. Right?
Yep. Because I think one of the things that I manifested, another thing that was really quick was I knew that with my daughter going to private school and being in private school and me wanting to start my own business, that tuition bill paired with full-time entrepreneurship was so scary. And I was able to identify the feeling that comes up for me around fear. And I renamed it growth. And I was like, okay, it must, be a growth moment. I feel something happening. And then I said, God, I don't know how we are going to do this tuition, but we're going to get it done because I need to, I really want to go into business for myself full time. And a while ago, long before this, I had applied for some different grants and some assistance. And it was 2 days before the date that I had to decide whether or not I was going to keep working for 6 months or be okay with walking away from everything. But 2 days before that date, I got an email saying that my tuition would be paid in full for the upcoming school year. So that really gave me the freedom and flexibility to say, you know what, this is confirmation for me. I can confidently walk into what's next for me, knowing that this tuition will be taken care of.
Okay. This is good, right?
Yeah.
This is good. So I heard a couple of things, and I would like for you to speak on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one, well, I'll take the easiest one first. The easiest one is that when we talked about manifesting, sometimes the belief is that we have to do it all ourselves, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But it came through something outside of you, right? But just being open and willing to receive it. So that grant, it didn't mean that you had to, like we associate like what we get from money and things like that with having to be forced energy or work. Like physical work. And so you didn't necessarily say that you were going to work harder and you were going to work overtime, or that you were going to force your way into it happening. You put it out there and claim that this was something that it had to happen. It was non-negotiable. This was a desire, and you expected to receive it. And then here's that grant money, right?
Yep.
And the other thing that's jumped out for me is you identified the feeling. You identified the feeling. Of fear, I believe.
Yeah, it was fear.
And you named it. Go. How did you get to a place where you identified that feeling? Like, what is that? Like, speak to that for me.
Well, I believe that like our thoughts and our actions are really important, but also our feelings. Like I remember hearing when I was really young, feelings get the blessing, right? And and so for me, I was like, I'd rather reframe this. I know we talk a lot about reframing our thoughts, but if I have this feeling, how else can I name this thing, right? Because it's there, it's real. But I get to decide how I allow it to show up. Is it going to stop me? Is it going to motivate me? What is this? And so I don't know that fear is like a negative word or emotion. I know that if you allow it to, it can have negative impact. But I was just like, I'd rather look at it as growth. And so every time I would get this feeling, especially when I was starting my business, I was like, okay, what I had to realize that this feeling of fear, it was going to show up. Because when you do big things and you're not certain about them, this is going to show up. And so if I call it growth, I felt like for me, that was something that I could embrace a little bit easier. Yeah, I could embrace it a little bit easier than a fear. I felt like if it was growth, I would expect great things to come from it. It was just like the way that I looked at it and how I needed to reframe it for me.
Yeah, when you said that, it gave me chills. Like, well, thanks for sharing that. Look, if it didn't bless anybody else, it didn't bless me, because it blessed me because I'm really big on honoring your feelings and your emotions and being able to name them and all those different things. But I never thought about reframing it in a way that I gave it a name. And gave it a name that empowers me. And so, thank you for that one.
Yep.
Thank you for that. It actually makes me, even just thinking about that whole like reframing process, it ironically, but not so ironic, right? I had one of the quotes that I had pulled for today, which I'm going to go ahead and use it now, is all it takes is a shift in perception to create a new reality. That's by Jen Sincero. And that's what you did. You took that feeling that you usually get in the way that fear shows up. You identified how it shows up in your body and all of those different things. And you shifted it. You reframed it. You gave it a name.
Yeah, because if I didn't, I knew that it would be a really, really good and strong possibility that thing would stop me. And I had a goal to get to. And, I wanted to make sure that I kept going in the direction that was going to get me to that goal quicker and faster.
That was good. That was good.
Thank you.
So You know, you and I can go on for hours.
Yeah.
Partially because I'm talkative and I'm inquisitive and I like to ask a lot of questions, but also because like we just love talking about this. And so I want to make sure that I'm honoring your time. But before you go, I know you have a program coming up, a free challenge to help others manifest their dreams, and you're going to offer some tips and tools for them. So how can the listeners get in contact with you? How can they connect with you so that they can learn more about manifesting and be a part of the challenge that you're launching?
Yeah, I have a free 7-day challenge coming up that I'm super excited about. And for more information, listeners can go to It's Tiff Marie on Instagram. So ITSTIFFMARIE.
All right. So it's Tiff Marie on Instagram. Please, ladies, get out there, connect with Tiffany. She has a lot of wonderful things going on. As you can see, you won't be disappointed. And she always has some little juicy nugget that she can drop in your spirit to help you manifest and embrace the joy and the dreams in your life. And so you can't go without me asking you, what brings you joy? Yeah, some of the things. Can you just share one thing that brings you joy?
So you named a few of them when you read my bio. So I love helping women, pouring into women. But my all-time favorite is spending time with Madison, my 18-year-old daughter. And I also like to read and watch TV. And so those are some of the things for me that just really brings me joy. Yeah. And I also love being in beautiful spaces. So that's another one. Yeah. And so I would encourage people to really think about what it is that brings them joy. Because a lot of times, like, we may tell people choose joy, but not often enough do people really stop and say, you know what does that look like for me? So just really thinking about what is it that brings me joy, and how can I, find joy and invite joy into my life, and not only the big ways, but the smaller ways as well.
Yeah, I love that, because sometimes it's just really just that simple. Like we all have access to books and like people that we love. There's many ways to connect with them. And even if they're not physically present, with technology, we can still connect with people that bring us joy, and yeah, it doesn't have to be that big, travel the world every day kind of thing. It can be the simple, small beauties of life. I love that. I love that. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Any
Thank you.
thoughts or anything else you want to share?
You know what? Nope. One of the things I will share is I am really, really excited to meet and hear from the listeners. And so just a simple follow on Instagram. It's Tiff Marie.
Awesome. Yes. By all means, follow my girl, Tiff Marie, and keep up with her and Graceful Growth and all the amazing things that she's doing, the retreats, her manifesting programs, and everything else. You won't be disappointed. If you show up fully and with an open mind, you're going to walk away with at least one thing that's going to truly bless your soul.
Yep.
And yeah, so thank you all for tuning in. And I just want to leave you with this one thought. There was a time when I cannot remember what it was that was happening, but I was so excited about it that it scared me. And I remember talking to my brother, Bruce, because he's the sibling that I can talk to about manifesting. And I remember saying, it feels too good to be true. And he said, what if it's good and it's true? So I just want to leave that as my closing thought. What if things that come to you that may feel too good to be true, that actually bring joy into your life, is really good And it's truly happening for you. Thanks for stopping by. This is Melanie Foote-Davis, the Self-Love Cultivator, and I'll see you soon. Love and blessings. Mwah.